So welcome and thanks again for joining the BFP committee meeting. We'll start off with welcomes and introductions. I think my welcome was sufficient, so we'll move on to introductions. Ray, do you mind going through the roster? And
sure. Let me.
I'll do it. I hear it open.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Stoyan.
Andrew,
I'm here.
Tony,
Here.
Diane. I thought she was going to attend. I guess she's late. Corey
Yeah, I
is
haven't
not
seen
here.
her yet.
Doug is here.
Here.
We have 3, so we have a quorum.
Perfect. Any members of the public wish to introduce themselves?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Me again, Terry Beals, Sound Transit Director over Regulatory Affairs. Good to see
Thank you,
everybody.
Terry.
This is Damon Jag with the Building Industry Association of Washington. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Damon. All right, we'll move on to number 2, review and approve the agenda. So the agenda is in front of us here. Pretty straightforward, so take a look. Anyone have any comments or changes they'd like to make?
Andrew, I just wanted to note I'm here, Diane.
Okay.
Oh, great. Hi, Diane.
Yeah.
All right, no comments. So if I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. This is Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Second.
Thank you. That sounded like Doug. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All those opposed? And the motion passes. So next up is review and approval of the last meeting's minutes back on December 14th. So we've got those up in front of us. So take a moment, read through if you've not yet. And if anyone has any revisions they'd like to make, please speak up. Otherwise, in a couple seconds, I'll call for a motion. All right. Anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Oh, go ahead. I'll second
Thank you,
that.
Diane.
This is Tony.
Thank you, Tony. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Hi.
All those opposed? And motion passes. So next up are, I believe, reports from our tags.
Sorry, rolling out here. Got to get out of this real quick.
Sure.
Get back to the edge. I'm kind of.
Yeah, tags went through all the significant changes as well as our current state amendments. So we'll go through those for the IBC. I'm chair, so I'll go through that. And then IFC and tsunami. Ray, do we have the chairs of those tags on here, or will we be?
We do have the fire chair tag. It doesn't appear that Todd is here, but I can report for the tsunami.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, let's start off with the IBC.
Significant changes or amendments?
Let's do significant changes. We'll go in order.
Okay.
And do you have a recommendation on how we should do these? You know, well, I guess I'll ask the committee members. Did you want to go through one by one? Did you want, you know, just, you know, we'll scroll through slowly if anyone has any comments on any of the recommendations. We can discuss those. What do folks think?
Chair, if I may, this is Tony.
I don't have any problem with just doing like a scroll through instead of a line by line. I think that there's a certain amount of faith and trust we should be putting in the tag, and since they're the ones who are probably the most intimate with it, so that's my recommendation.
All right, unless anyone feels differently, that was my thought too, but I didn't want to be the one to say that. So thank you, Tony. So, okay, Ray, do you mind just scrolling through slowly? I believe we addressed all the costs and whether or not an amendment was needed. Originally, we had some unknowns or question marks, but I believe, the tag voted and came to a consensus on, to give an actual yes and no answer on everything. Some of the biggest significant changes were tall wood. So that's CLT, cross-laminated timber. We already had most of those amendments in there, luckily. So, we're pretty progressive and we were following on the national level as things were happening. So now we're, you'll see when we bring up amendments that we'll be able to get rid of a lot of those. So, as for types of construction here, that's what a lot of that is.
I'll scroll a little faster if they have no significant change.
Okay, why don't you stop there? We've got a highlighted section, existing amendment. Existing amendment addresses secondary non-structural tabular attachments to structural members, while the model code doesn't specify the secondary attachments are non-structural and tubular. I think if I remember correctly from our discussions in the tag, that that our amendment does not go above and beyond anything that the new wording in the code does. So we can get rid of that language, our amendment language. So tag recommendations were pretty clear for staff. So hopefully everyone's taking a look at these documents. So I didn't see anything that specifically needs to be discussed, but if you do, please speak up and we can discuss things.
Hey, Andrew,
And then
this is Damon. A quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Are members of the public allowed to discuss certain issues right now, or is that later?
Yeah, I correct me if I'm wrong with Robert's rules, but I think we can be completely open right now for members of the public. So yeah, if you've got something to discuss, feel free to bring it up.
Awesome. I kind of wanted to bring attention to section 310.4.2. I know we discussed this in the
Okay,
tag.
well, I'll tell you what, since we're going backwards, why don't we continue going through and then we'll come back to that. Do you mind?
No, that's fine.
Then,
yeah, we can do that.
Okay, and then as a reminder to other folks, as we go through stuff, if you want to stop, feel free to speak up. But if you miss it too, we can come back to it. But I don't want to, we're in a pretty good movement here, so I just didn't want to interrupt that.
Okay. It was 310, Damon?
Yeah, it was 310.4.2.
It's on the screen.
Okay, the floor is all yours, Damon.
Thank you. So first, I'd like to say thanks to Chair Glenn and the other members of the Building Code Council for being here today to let me speak on this issue. My name is Damon Jegg. I'm with the Building Industry Association of Washington, and I'm also a member of the Building Code tag as well as the Fire Code tag. And we went through 310.4.2, I believe, in our last Building Code meeting. And I firmly think that there needs to be some cost associated with this proposal and definitely an amendment. I just think for residential folks that there is going to be a cost associated with it. This for a number of reasons. The proposal, may discourage homeowners from renting out rooms or levels of their home due to imposing a costly retrofit equipment. Reducing the supply of affordable housing even further. And I had some more notes here, one second. This proposal also violates the principle that the IRC is supposed to be a standalone code for dwellings within its scope. Where the IBC allows the use of the IRC, it should not overlay additional requirements, especially not based on what a jurisdiction may or may not amend in the IRC. And I just think there's, even though this kind of applies to lodging houses and bed and breakfast and not your typical, single family home, I still think that the change from the 2018 code to the 2021 code kind of just clearly added in an automatic sprinkler system is installed in accordance with section 903.1.3 or section P2904 of the International Residential Code. And I feel like it kind of, the discussion we had in the building code tag left me, I just feel like this change needs to be addressed and that there's going to be a fiscal cost associated with it. And I'm kind of new to this and I was a bit confused as to where this lies, but I think that it's not just going to be like, oh, refer to the IRC if you'd like to build, a lodging house. It's going to be a bit more complex than that. So I kind of just think that should be associated with the cost. Sorry for rambling.
No, thank you, Damon. So are you asking us what exactly is your ask? Do you want us to change the cost associated with it? Do you want us to make some notes on that, or do you want us to revisit whether or not we should be adopting that?
Yeah, I think definitely that there should be a cost associated with that. And I think the amendment, I'm still getting associated with how we're going to, I just don't think that, I think 2018 code is fine in that adding the extra part proposed in the 2021 code is unnecessary. So moving forward, I would just like to, strike out the added portion or just leave it to the 2018 language.
Okay, thank you. We're happy to hear, more testimony or, a motion, if anyone wants to make a motion, if they agree with Damon or want to consider changing anything here in our recommendations to the full council. Now would be the time to do that based on that testimony.
Andrew, if
Thank
I
you.
may, just
Yes,
for
please.
clarification, I did some additional research after the meeting yesterday based on Damon's statement. Well, the intent for adopting this section in 2021 is not to increase, it's to decrease the construction cost. So there are requirements for sprinkler systems for lodging houses currently in 2018 IBC, and Tony will correct me if I'm wrong, he's the specialist here. And this modified section, it just gives another option for compliance. And again, reading the rationale of the ICC, it's intended to decrease the cost, not to increase it.
by allowing a 13D system instead of a 13R, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, in our current state code, is Damon correct that previously, that was not the case because the IRC, because we've amended out sprinkler requirements in the IRC, is it a change for our state? Or an increase in cost, I should say.
Andrew, this is Diane. I don't believe in the 2018, you had that ability to build a lodging house. It has a certain definition, and it was under the IBC. I don't think they allowed, I think this is why it's new, is because you can build it under IRC instead of the IBC, and as long as you put a sprinkler system in. So I think it's giving more flexibility, actually, for building lodging homes.
That makes sense. Damon, do you understand that? So previously, you couldn't build a lodging home under the IRC. So renting your room out in a single family home doesn't automatically make it a lodging home. That's based on, I believe it's based on zoning requirements, isn't it? Of how many non-related persons live in a house?
Yeah, I think it's the number of rentals.
So this is Ken Brulette, Seattle Fire. The scope of the International Residential Code, the state insert, that they have two exceptions in there. One is owner-occupied lodging houses with 1 or 2 guest rooms shall be permitted to be constructed in accordance with the IRC for 1 and 2 family dwellings. And then the state removes sprinklers for those. But then the number 3 says owner-occupied lodging homes with 3 to 5 guest rooms shall be permitted to be constructed in accordance with the IRC for 1 and 2 family dwellings when a fire sprinkler system in accordance with Appendix U is installed. So that's where the language comes in with the sprinklers for lodging houses, in my opinion, is in the scoping of the 2018 IRC state amendment.
So Ken, our state amendment said that 1 and 2 basically was under the IRC, but a lodging house under our amendment was 3 or more, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, for 3. Well, it's with 3 to 5 guest rooms shall be permitted to be constructed. So I know that we haven't looked at the IRC yet, but that's where something would have to get tweaked because it only says Appendix U. It doesn't say NFPA 13D or the 903.3.1.3. So when the change in the 310.4.2, and like you said, it allows construction into the IRC. So then we take that lodging house, we put it into the IRC, and then you look at the IRC as scoping provisions and go on from there. So it would have, it would appear that it would be, and I hate to say this, it would appear that it would be more restrictive, in my opinion.
Well, it
Because
would be in the IRC, but unless we take that amendment, but in the IBC, it allows you to go back to the IRC. So it depends on how we deal with the amendment in the IRC.
Exactly, yes, because the IBC is saying, hey, if I have 5 or fewer guest rooms or 10 or fewer total occupants, then I can build it in the IRC. And so that just jumps us over to the IRC, but it says we have to have a sprinkler system in it.
Right, so
So
if we dealt with the amendment in the IRC and we kept that in there, that 1 and 2 rooms would be exempt from the fire sprinkler, then that would take care of the IRC. So I think, I think we're on the same page. It's just that, we're dealing with 2 different codes here, right?
Yeah, I just think you need to change the exception in the IRC, the number 3 and 101.2, the scope, to include the 13B systems, just to
Yeah.
somewhat be consistent. And that's
So Damon,
my
when,
opinion.
yeah, Damon, when we get to the IRC, would you make sure we bring this up on that amendment? I'm sure you will, but we'll keep track of it there.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. But with, I guess my other concern is to the cost portion of it. I still think that the change will add substantial cost to BMBs constructed under the 2021 IBC. So is there any way we can, note that there will be a fiscal cost on this? I mean, the flexibility is, one issue, but I think cost is a separate one as well.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable if we change the N to a Y.
But just note that if you build it under the IBC, you have to put sprinklers in anyway.
Yeah, I think I understand that.
Okay. Okay.
Well, great discussion. Any other discussion on anything? And this includes members of the public. All right. I guess I will entertain a motion. So I guess the motion would be to put forward these recommendations to the full council for consideration at tomorrow's meeting.
This is Tony. I'll make a motion to send these recommendations forward.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, is it going to die for lack of a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Diane. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. So next up, let's go through the existing amendments for the IBC.
Are you seeing it on the screen?
Yes,
Okay.
I see it on the screen. So quite a few amendments, as I mentioned, especially dealing with tall wood. That was addressed in the 2021 model code, specifically because we used language that had been approved at the final action hearing, or the public comment hearing, used to be called the final action hearing at the ICC. So those were able to get rid of. And then other amendments, some are being kept because they're still necessary. Other ones have been addressed in the model code. So we're able to either get rid of them or we're able to modify them slightly in order to correlate the new code language together with our state amendment. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll slowly scroll through stuff. If you've got any comments, speak up. If you miss something, it's not a big deal. Just note it and we can come back to that. And this is probably one of the reasons our WAC says that we're tasked with minimizing our number of amendments. We do have folks representing Washington, WABO, as well as other code officials who go to the national meetings to try to get the national code sometimes in line with our Washington code.
Yeah, Andrew, I don't know if you're aware or not, but Tracy Harvey, the Washington State Amendment that she made for marijuana, ICC picked up and used that almost verbatim for the model code from the Washington State.
It's wonderful, yeah. I think she sits now on the Fire Code Action Committee, which if you're not too familiar with the way the national codes work, they're heard by committees for each code. But ICC also puts together smaller committees to kind of vet codes together prior to going on to the full code. So that's what the code action or CAC code action committees are.
Oh, quite a few on there. Okay. So some of them we haven't done yet.
All right. So any comments on any specific sections?
Andrew, I had a question.
Yep.
And I don't mean this to sound insulting or anything to the tag, but when you were looking at the amendments, the existing amendments and the comments that you're making that they're now in the model code, which is great. Did you look at those as word for word or did you kind of take the intent, or do they have to be exact?
We took the intent and we even, and I'll give you an example. We were even concerned at one point because we were deciding whether mass, timber, and type 4 were synonymous in some of the model code language and our language. But we went with intent, not actual language verbatim.
Okay.
There is a summary at the top of this table with the blue color. There are existing amendments that will need modifications to align with the new model code language, but it doesn't change the regulatory effect. It just this is the wording. And there are others on the right side of the table, 164. That number may change, but so some of these will include renumbering, but the language will stay the same. So here, this is the difference.
Okay, that's the main modification, is just the numbering, basically.
On the right side, the 164, the number that is shown, these are existing amendments that we will keep this existing amendment. Well, the TAC is recommending to keep the existing amendments. On a rough estimate, about 20% of this will require a renumbering. And in the middle with the blue color, these are existing amendments that need to be modified, but just wording and not changing regulatory effect.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't looking far enough on my screen. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments from members of the public or the committee?
I would just like to add that the building and fire did work together on the overlapping chapters 9 and 10. There's members of those tags that serve on both fire and building. And for the ones that we didn't have that, those were something that were worked on together. And I'm just getting that out of the way now, because when we go through ours, 9 and 10 is going to be very similar, obviously, or just, alike. So those align appropriately. So.
Thank you, Tony. So that's one other thing a lot of people don't understand. So forgive me, a lot of you do understand, but when you've got a letter and a bracket ahead of time, for example, in the building code, you may have an F. That means that the fire code committee is the one responsible for that section, even though it's in the IBC. So sometimes you have verbatim things, other times it's, not verbatim, but it's still under the purview of another committee, which these, sections Tony mentioned are. Any other comments? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Tony. I'll make a motion to approve the IBC TAG existing amendment review and move it forward.
Thank you, Tony.
Second.
Thank you, Doug. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And the motion passes. So Tony, are you ready to go through fire amendments as well as the significant changes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, thank you. Floor is all yours.
Thank you. Okay, so looks like Ray, you're right on it. So we have that pulled up. As we look through this, again, we'll kind of do the same thing that Andrew did, and we'll just scroll through. And if there are any questions or concerns on this, feel free to speak up. Sounds like Chairman Klein, you were kind of referring any comments to the end. So, if that's the best way to do it, we'll continue with that route. So as we go through this, you'll see the costs and amended, just like we did on the other one. These forms are styled the same, so it should be pretty easy to understand. If there is any questions or comments, let us know and we can go over them. And again, 9 and 10 are going to be pretty similar, obviously, to the building one we went through.
Yeah, they're exactly the same. I took them from the building and put them on the fire.
Thank you, Ray. Chapter 11 did have some stuff for high-rise buildings for sprinkler systems that would be a cost impact, and it's unsure at this time whether there will be an amendment associated with that or not.
If there were no significant changes, we just left it blank on the spreadsheet to clean it up. I think that's it, Tony.
Okay. All right. So anything through those chapters that anyone sees, or is there any sections that you would like us to go back to so we can take a deeper look into those? How's everyone feeling about it?
Could you go back to the very first? There was a highlighted yellow. I was reading through. It seemed significant.
I think it was chapter
That
5.
one, yeah, 501.
Yeah. So this section is added to require a site safety plan and place responsibility on the owner. The code change proposal will increase the cost of construction. It is likely that this code change will have a minimal but increased cost impact. Many construction sites already comply with these provisions. For those that don't, the cost of added security and development of a site safety plan will be additional costs. And I think Ken's still with us. If he has something he'd like to add, I'd call on him.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the highlighted is directly from the code change at the national level through the Fire Code Action Committee. So that's where that quote came from. So when they put this through for the 2021 code, that was their justification statement for increased costs. So I just wanted to duplicate that over so there wasn't anything hidden. It was very transparent.
Thank you, Ken.
Tony, do you want to maybe touch with the committee on, remember the one that Matt Campbell was working on, retroing sprinklers? Do you remember what code section that
I
was?
think it was in 11. Is that the one?
Yeah.
33.
Is it 33? Okay.
I apologize. This is 11.
Oh, this one here. I can't remember the
No.
details. Remember, it was going to be a major cost for building owners, and then making them
No,
retro.
it was the number 11. It was in chapter 11 for the high rise.
Yeah, I think it was for high rises.
Yeah, it's on page 13. And I think it's 110354.
Okay.
Yeah, and being that Matt and Ken are in on this, if you'd like to speak to that.
Well, I can share. Ken will have more of a hands-on approach. I just know it's definitely a new section of the code for the 2021. And the impact, I think Ken probably has a better sense of the impact on existing structures.
Yeah, so if I may, I don't know if I'm signed on, if I can share or not. You need to give me power to do that.
I'm going to stop sharing and you go ahead, Ken.
Okay. All right, let me pull up the. Give me a minute here. I'm gonna get the right document over to the right screen. Okay, it should be loading up. And of course. Okay, show all windows. I just, Zoom is a pain in the rear end. God darn it. All right, just give me a second. I'm getting onto the right screen. Let me get rid of this big ass screen. There we go. Okay. All right, now it should be loading up. Okay. So the blue section here, I'll make this large that we can see it.
I appreciate that, Ken.
So
Larger the better.
yeah, okay, so there's an appendix M that talks about retrofitting fire sprinklers, and I don't believe the state's going to adopt it. So it says existing high-rise buildings that don't previously have an approved sprinkler system shall have one installed where any of the following conditions apply. And this is where it would affect some some buildings in Seattle. And it's more than 100 when they have a occupied floor more than 120 feet above the lowest level of fire department access. That's number one. Or if they have high-rise building has occupied floors located more than 75 feet and not more than 120 feet. And the building does not have at least 2 interior exit stairways, which we might have some of those in Seattle. And then the last one is high-rise occupied floors more than 75 feet and not more than 120 feet above the lowest level. And then the building does not have a fire alarm system that includes smoke detection in specific rooms. So what's interesting is on the number 3, it actually has the compliance schedule should not exceed 12 years for completion automatic sprinkler system retrofit. I believe that's a standalone, and it's not supposed to be part of 3. So I'll have to double check the printing of that code section, because you're looking at the red line version, and I'm not too sure if anybody has the 2021.
Ken, I think
Andy.
you're right too, that it was standalone. It had to do with the entire, actually, maybe it wasn't, where any of the following conditions apply. So, yeah. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Ken.
No, it's all right. I'm just, so you know, you'll see it now. I'm just pulling up the other printing of it just to make sure. I don't know if that's what you just did, Andrew. Because it doesn't make sense, but whoops, there we go. All right, somebody help me out again. It was 1103.
1103.5.4.
Okay. All right, so yeah, so it is part of the exception in, or it is in condition number 3, apply. So I thought the intent was that you get a 12-year plan, but the number 3, how it's written here, indicates on the last sentence that it might only apply to condition number 3.
Okay,
So,
yeah, you're
so anyways,
absolutely
yeah,
right. It was a standalone sentence.
It was, yeah. And so
yeah,
it should have been, it just wasn't printed correctly. So, so yes, this will have an impact in Seattle for some existing buildings. We have not done an audit and identified it, but I will be working with BOMA. We do have some existing building requirements. I think we have a chapter in our fire code that talks about existing high rises. So we're going to have to take a look at how it impacts the city of Seattle.
okay. And Ken, just for some background, I don't want to speak for the Seattle chapter of BOMA, but the, BOMA International did support that code change. And that was one of the reasons they negotiated the 12-year compliance schedule, with the idea that it was usually about 5 years for each tenant space. So, 12 years kind of gives enough time to get the entire building retrofitted.
That sounds about right.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that input, and thank you, Ken and Matt, for filling in on that.
I think Dave Kokot did share that it would impact some facilities, some buildings in Spokane as well. Sorry, Tony.
No, thank you for adding that. Yep, thank you. Any questions or clarifications on that or any of the other areas on this sheet? And if anyone would like to go to any specific areas, let me know. Okay, with that, I'll turn it back over to Andrew.
All right. Well, thank you, Tony. I will give another opportunity if anyone has any comments. Otherwise, if anyone wants to make a motion to move these recommendations forward to the full Building Code Council, I will entertain that.
Move these recommendations forward to the council.
Thank you, Doug. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Diane. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. Thank you. So, Tony, I'll hand things back to you to go into the next document.
All right, sounds good. So this is the IFC TAG existing amendment review. This went, I thought, remarkably smooth. Again, working closely with the building tag, 9 and 10, as well as some other areas throughout here were considered in conjunction with the other tags so we could be consistent as a state with some of that language. A lot of this you're going to see I'll touch on Diane's comment during the review of the building document. There are some that are going to put identical language or covered in the model code language on here. Some of it is word for word. Other portions of it are intent. And a good example of that is our, Ray mentioned earlier about the marijuana processing. Marijuana processing was something that was done at the state level and then got put into the model code, but the model code does not limit it to marijuana processing. It's for all plant extraction processes. So it's just a little broader just to cover all of it, but it still covers what the intent was of our marijuana processing chapter. And so you'll see stuff like that in here where it says the model code covers, but it may be that the intent covers it. We ended up moving around some of the numbering because of numbering changes for chapters and sections. But it's pretty consistent with the way building kind of went through it as well. So go ahead and take a peek and let me know if you guys see anything that we can discuss, that you would like to discuss. Part of that correlation as well in like chapter 10, I think we found a section in chapter 10 that was amended on the building side, but not the fire side. And so that was one thing we took care of in that process too, which was nice.
I guess we can, I'll add, Tony, if it's all right.
Yeah.
Our WUI code, we will be, the WUI code is now a standalone book adopted by the state. So we'll have to go through the rulemaking process to make that its own book. So these won't be amendments in the ISC anymore. They will be converted into the standalone WUI book.
And we're waiting for that process to be complete before that gets tackled. Is that correct, Ray? Is that the?
We kind of put it on hold because we didn't know how to approach it right away. So.
And Tony, back in 53, there were a couple amendments regarding, I don't know, we discussed it. The notes identified to modify, yes, the red line one there, 5308 and 5307. I think we determined in the discussion, help me remember, I think we determined that the amendments should stay as is, because those were coordinated with the trades.
I do remember that, Matt. Thank you.
You know, we had a discussion regarding, and to Diane's point earlier, that whether or not the modifications to the model code met the intent of the state amendment, and so we brought that up in an effort to remove the amendments if possible, but settled on maintaining the language as amended, just because it was a stakeholder kind of coordinated process to get it in there. So
Thank you for that clarification, Matt.
Yeah. I would just recommend when we make it a motion to do this, we may motion it with the change on this line item.
Okay. I'll make a motion to keep the, let's see, we're keeping the amended language for 5306.1. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Diane. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed? And motion passes.
That was it for the IFC.
Do we need to?
Andrew, did we vote on moving that forward?
We did not. So we only voted on that individual amendment. So yeah, I'll entertain a motion to move the entire document forward.
Move to move the recommendations forward to council.
Thank you, Diane.
Second.
Thank you, Doug. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And motion passes. So yeah, Ray, are you able to go through the tsunami emergency rule status?
Yeah, we don't really have much to bring up other than the tsunami tag met on Wednesday. Yeah, we met on Wednesday. We kind of went over and discussed that was going to be the last tag meeting for tsunami. The tag member Kale Ash is going to be the tsunami representative on the code when we get into the structural end of it. But the CR 102, the emergency rule has been filed. The CR 102 has been filed, and we're just waiting the time frame out to go through the hearing process to make it a permanent rule and file the CR 103P. But it was a great tag group, very knowledgeable. They did an amazing job. John Sue put an amazing code together. They did a very good job. But that's where we stand. So after the next hearing process, we will make it a permanent rule.
Wonderful. Thank you for the update. All right. I guess we'll move on to agenda item 5, requests for opinion, and we've got 3 of those. So we'll go down in order and start off with the King County Fire Marshals.
Okay, I'll wait for Ray to get that one pulled up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to do a new share.
Okay, the question from King County Fire Marshals, the Association of King County Fire Marshals said, for buildings or portions thereof that operate as a non-medical licensed institution, does the building official have the authority to determine the occupancy classification based on the use and associated hazards of the facility in accordance with the adopted code? We had extensive conversation about this at the TAG level, and I'm glad Matt just turned his camera on, because I'm going to give a brief overview of what the discussion entailed and where they were coming from on this question. And if I'm wrong there, Matt can help me out, but he'll be able to elaborate on this as well. But basically what the concern, I think, was that because some of these institutions did not have the state license, they were saying that they couldn't be classified as an I. And that's where the question and the answer kind of comes in. And the answer for that is for buildings or facilities not licensed by the state of Washington, the code official may designate the occupancy type and construction requirements for the building structure or portion thereof. And with that, I can turn it over to Matt, and he can kind of jump into that a little more if he has something to add.
No, thank you, Tony. And perhaps, do we have anyone from King County Fire Marshals Association to speak to the request? I guess would be the first point. Really, they'd be the best person to provide context.
There's nobody online today, Matt.
Okay. Then to share the perspective of the Department of Health, I'm here representing the Department of Health. I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. And as part of the fire code tag, this item was brought up, and I believed it was discussed at the building code tag as well. Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, it was not.
So I believe that the Fire Marshals Association on behalf of the city of Renton was seeking scope and authority kind of information regarding the repurposing or changes in use of existing hotels. Now, given the events of the last year, there's been a lot of things done differently, and as far as accommodating and changing use of buildings. But I think under normal circumstances that the fire marshals just saw a change of use of the building and were concerned and was seeking a path to provide guidance and require these facilities to meet a building requirement associated with an occupancy designation, and that the services provided in this case a repurposed hotel appeared to be institutional in nature. And the occupants and the users of the building demurred by indicating that we are not an institutional occupancy licensed by the state of Washington. It's not appropriate to ask those building requirements of us, and hence the conversation went along the lines of who gets to decide occupancy as a means of having a conversation of finding out the appropriate building requirements. So that said, no, you are doing an I occupancy thing, therefore you must meet I occupancy requirements. And given that we do have, the Code Council has worked for many years on very specifically and deliberately linking some occupancy designations with licensure, it was in the interest, the Department of Health wanted just to make sure that this conversation about scope and authority of the building code and the powers of the building official or the code official did not undermine existing state amendments to the building code where we do link occupancy with a license.
Thank you for that, Matt. And then just also to add a little bit more of the details within the language in the answer. The term code official was used instead of building code official or fire code official, because depending on the jurisdiction, that might change depending on who makes that designation. So that's why we were very careful with putting code official and not fire or building code official, because that depends on jurisdiction, or it can change based on jurisdiction. So the answer, I would say, probably changed 3 or 4 times with nuances until we kind of got it right. And I think Matt felt good about it with the Department of Health, who's on our tag. I had a lot of really good information to provide. And this was the answer that we came up with, that we were comfortable with, that didn't really back anyone into a corner too much or go against anything that is already adopted at the state level.
If I remember correctly too, Tony, we're trying to be careful so it can't be used in a reverse form than what we had a simple answer, but the way we answered it, it could have been used against the local jurisdiction. And so we were very careful to make sure we kept it an even playing field.
Thank you, Ray. Yep, that's correct.
Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Matt. So I think that's a very concise and good answer. It's the code official ultimately that designates the occupancy type. So is there any discussion from the public or other members of the committee? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the state building code opinion from the Association of King County Fire Marshals with the answer provided by the fire tag.
Thank you, Tony.
I'll second.
Thank you, Diane. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. All right, so next up is the Kickitas. Sorry.
Kickitas.
Kickitas. Thank you, Diane. Kickitas County question here.
Let me get this bigger.
And Ray, do you mind going through that?
I was going to actually turn this over to Krista. If Krista's still on, she sent this to me. I think they reviewed it a little bit today in the MVE committee.
Yeah, and I was on that as well. So
Okay.
If Krista's not on, I can go through stuff. But I may as well just go through stuff. So question, yep. Was there a question?
No, I was just saying thank you and deferring to you. This is Krista.
Oh, okay. You actually, Krista, do you mind going through it? It looks like an alarm just went off here.
Sure.
So I'll pick up. Yeah, sorry.
So,
There we go. Okay. Okay. No, I'll go through it. It got taken care of. So, okay. So this is a question here regarding unvented crawl spaces. So the background, I'll read background and question very quickly. Background is the IRC allows for conditioned air supply to be delivered to the crawl space and recirculated to the common area. Washington removed this option in their amendment so as to not allow communication between the crawl space and common areas. The amendment allows continuously operated mechanical exhaust, but does not require an air intake from the outside. So the question is, can a heat duct be provided in the crawl space which would be mechanically drawn to the exterior and thus not communicating with the common area to provide a conditioned space for ductwork complying with section R403.3.7 of the Washington State Energy Code if other conditions in the amendment to the IRC section R408.3 are met? So the answer provided by staff was yes, if the requirements of IRC section R408.3 and the thermal envelope and air barrier requirements of the Washington State Energy Code are met, this could be considered conditioned space. So the issue, I guess the rub came in with the fact that in Washington, we have our own state amendment, which requires a certain amount of outside air in the duct, in the crawl space. So once you have that, it's very hard to have a conditioned crawl space where that's part of the interior, part of the conditioned space, as opposed to outside the thermal barrier. So the MVE committee discussed it ad nauseum. Not quite. That's yeah. They discussed it quite a bit.
Close. Yeah.
Close to ad nauseum. So they wanted to summarize what they discussed, which is written there. It says either the space is considered an unvented crawl space and considered outside the thermal envelope barrier and meets the requirements of section R408.3, or it is designed as part of the conditioned space where ducts are within the space enclosed by an air barrier and thermal requirements and does not require continuous exhaust per IRC section R408.3, item 2, but must comply with item 1 radon requirements. So it because of our state amendment, it's actually a complicated answer to give. It's almost a performance-based approach that they would have to take if they have what is basically a crawl space, but they want to have that considered to be conditioned space. So I'm happy to take questions if I didn't give the background quite well enough. Otherwise, I'm happy to let people speak up and give their opinions. And I guess to start out here, I guess my recommendation personally would be to keep that answer along with, let's see, that either space. Krista, what was did the MVE committee write, did you write that in such a way that that could be the answer itself? Or is that an add-on to the answer? Or is it a, sort of a non-answer saying that, these certain things need to be considered? What was the intention of that?
I believe their intention was that that would become the answer rather than the staff answer.
Okay. Perfect. So let's consider that MVE committee answer there in red. And yeah, if there's any discussion or comments, let's bring that up. And that includes members of the public.
Just to clarify, this is Tony. With the original answer that is now crossed out, there was a yes basically in there. And then after going through the MVE committee, there's not a yes if or no if. And maybe that's intentional because of the, the layers to this. But is there a way of putting a yes if the space is, no if the space isn't, or were you guys trying to stay away from that? And if you were, I totally get it.
Yeah, that was intentional, just,
Okay.
Since it is more performance-based. But again, if you think we owe a yes or no answer, we can always modify that as you see fit.
Nope, I just wanted clarification. So I would put personally, I'd put my trust in the MVE committee and what they came up with.
All right. Well, this went a lot smoother than the MVE committee. There doesn't seem to be any discussion. Everyone seems to be okay with the answer / non-answer that we're providing. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have anyone there from, and I already forgot how to pronounce it.
Kittitas.
From Kickatas County, to let us know if this is sufficient for them, but I'm sure we'll hear about it if it's not, and we can provide additional information. But yeah, if there's no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the code opinion. It's answered here that was proposed by Kittitas County.
Thank you, Tony.
Second.
Thanks, Doug. Any further discussion? And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And motion passes. So now on to the City of Bellevue's IRC 507.5 deck tables. See, pretty simple question and simple answer, but a little bit of background there. So City of Bellevue had the question in section 507.5 of the 2018 residential code. Should tables R507.5 number 3 and number 4 be used to size deck beams? And the answer is no. Only table 507.5 should be used for sizing deck beams, and the charging language in section 507.5 should only refer to table 507.5.
I can provide a little bit more background here, if I may.
Yeah, thank you, Stoyan. Please.
So currently, we have different tables in the WAC, different tables in the online ICC version and the Washington Building Code, and different tables in the insert pages. So the issue is that the council approved table R507.5, which is a combined table for maximum deck beam span for 60 PSF live load or 70, PSF ground snow load. Regardless of that, it appears that we put in the code two more tables, and one is the maximum deck beam span 60 PSF, and the other one is for 70 live load. The last two tables I mentioned, they are not wrong, but the council didn't adopt these tables. The council adopted the combined table. So we can fix this by rulemaking, because it appears in a wrong way in WAC, and it will take some time. This is why City of Bellevue asked the clarifying question. If we do the rulemaking, it will take at least a month following the adoption process and the procedure. And City of Bellevue just wanted to clarify if table 507.5 can be used, shall be used only this table, or the other two tables as well. So it's just a clarifying question.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question. I don't have it in front of me, but the other tables in there, do they list a less than 60-pound live load?
No, we struck the tables with less, and for some reason, these two tables, they're with 60 PSF and 70, and they're okay for Washington State. But again, the combined table have everything that is required for Washington, and this is the way it was approved by the council. So again, the other two tables, they're not wrong, they're just misleading.
Okay, so it's all in that one table, 507.5.
That's correct.
That we
Yes.
approved. Okay, got it.
If I remember correctly, studying in our meeting, it was, if it couldn't have been used in Washington State, they just struck it out of the table. There was no need in having it in a WAC if it could never be used in Washington State.
No, the tables that are now in the code, they can be used, but again, they weren't adopted, they weren't approved by the council. Only 507.5 was approved.
Okay, I might be thinking of something else. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stoyan. Any further discussion? All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
This is Tony. I'll make a motion to approve state building code opinion requested by City of Bellevue.
Thank you, Tony.
Second, this is Doug.
Thanks, Doug. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And motion passes. So any other business to be brought up?
Mr. Chair, just for a point of clarification, these opinions will be on our agenda for tomorrow for review by the whole council, and it'll go in as a recommendation for approval.
Yes, that's my understanding. Correct, Stoyan? Right.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yep, I'll be handing the torch off to you, Diane.
Okay.
All right. Well, as always, thank you. If anything else comes up, I'm always available by mobile or email. And yeah, we'll adjourn. I'll give everyone another 5 seconds if they have other business. Otherwise, we'll adjourn.
I just like to say thanks to all of you. I'm learning every time I get into these meetings, so I appreciate the professional business-like way you guys go through the information. And anyway, thanks again. I'm learning every day.
Thank you for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.